Hello, everyone. This is Tommy at World at War Comics. Thanks for joining us this week. We have another amazing guest. This week, we are speaking with Emma Kubert. Emma Kubert is an amazing artist, writer, creator. Right now, if you go into your local comic book store, you will see probably issue two, but you could get issue one because it's still fairly early, about a month and a half into the story. So check it out. It follows a young lady named Shade Whisper. Extremely relatable character. I think once you start to read it, you're going to be able to look at your own life and realize that a lot of shade is in us. But check it out. Incredible adventure story that follows her. And then if you're not aware, which you probably are, Emma also is the artist on Pandora, Frank Miller's new series, which is now finishing the first arc with issue 6. She also does the artwork for Radiant Pink. So if you're a big fan of the Radiant series, Radiant Pink is out right now, and she is working on that. She did Inkblot, about 15 issues of Inkblot. So you should be checking that out through Image. But yeah, very talented young woman. And I've had a lot of fun reading her newest comic, and her artwork is incredible. So yeah, hang out with us, hang out with our conversation. Hopefully you enjoyed it as much as I did having it with Emma. And make sure that you subscribe, like, and share this episode. Without further ado, here's Emma. Thanks, everyone. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome, Emma, to the show. Really appreciate you joining us. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. No, I was in the local comic book store. I started reading Pandora. I love Frank Miller. I think a lot of people do. I mean, he's a legend in the who doesn't, right? And so as he started, his publishing, started just putting out a bunch of different stuff. I picked up Pandora, and I noticed that you were the artist on that. So I
Yep.
was like, oh, cool. And obviously, you come from a pretty historic family yourself. So I was
I
like,
do
oh, this is
indeed.
really cool. Yeah. And then I saw that you came out with your own
Mhm.
Stoneheart. I'm like, well, let me just reach out and just see if there's a possibility that maybe we could talk about some of the things that you're working on. You seem like you've been extremely busy for the last, I don't know, year, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, probably more the past couple years just
Mm-hmm.
to get it. It's kind of like, you guys all hear about this stuff happening all at once. That's kind of what happened with all of my books coming out at that
Uh-huh.
time. I think it was in December when Pandora and Radiant Pink, like the
Radiant
Radiant Pink
Pink.
mini series came out, and then Stoneheart came out in March.
Yeah.
And like I remember reading an article that was just like, it's probably timing, but
Yeah.
she has 3 books coming out. And I was like, it is timing, I promise.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
I've been working on this stuff for a long time before that, and it just kind of all congregated all at one point.
I think in one side maybe that's good, right? Because I see your name on a bunch of different things. So I guess if
Yeah.
you want to like bombard the comic family, right? This is a good way to do it. And they're like, oh my gosh, Emma's everywhere, right? And I think it's good from a marketing standpoint.
I mean, I agree with that. It's a good thing for everyone. So I'm
Yeah.
happy that it came out. All of the books that came out at that time got really good reception. So I'm
Yeah.
really happy about that. And we'll see where it goes from there.
For sure, for sure. I mean, Radiant has been pretty popular for what, 3 years now.
Oh
And
yeah.
so obviously you got Radiant Black, Radiant Pink, and I think it'd be pretty cool to be part of that. How did you get connected to that group?
I was really lucky to be
Yeah.
connected to that group. And it was mostly it happened um I was it was years ago. I was doing this really small convention.
Hmm.
It was like in Washington State. Like it was a really small one. It was on like a campground. And
Yeah.
I really liked that show too. And I like the smaller shows sometimes. But with this particular show, I was sat next to Kyle Higgins.
Mm.
And at this show, since it was a bit of a smaller show, there weren't as many people around. I got an opportunity to really talk to him about all of this kind of stuff. And not only is he a great person, but we got to talking about, his Radiant series and all that stuff. And I was just like, if I could get an opportunity to draw something, that would
Yeah.
be awesome.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, oh, we'll think of something. And then they thought of something. So
That's
that was
awesome.
really, I thought it was awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
and it was just like, it was just when I was starting, like I had Inkblot out by Image Comics, so that was
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
And it was at the time when I was kind of looking to, take on new projects, and that was just a really, really good fit. And I literally just finished the 5th issue like last week or something like
Oh,
that.
wow. Yeah.
So that's really exciting because like now it's all over, it's all done.
Yeah.
I mean the 5th issue has yet to come out, but uh no, it was awesome to work on. Like I really loved working on this particular project too because of the all-female team, which was
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
good to work with. I
Awesome.
got to work with Megan and Melissa, and it was awesome. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it because like this is also something that is a part of a bigger universe
Yeah.
that was created, and it's an indie universe. It's
Yeah.
still superheroes, but it's indie, it's a new thing. And it's just really exciting to be a part of something that's bigger.
Yeah. Yeah,
'Cause
for
a
sure.
lot of the other projects that I work on, I'm also a creator for those projects, like Pandora. I do a
Mhm.
lot of creating for that, and obviously for Stoneheart and Inkblot, I'm the creators of those properties.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of nice to like be in a story where I can like add to something that's
Sure.
already
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
It's a whole new way to approach things, and
Yeah.
I like the differences between that, and
Yeah.
collaboration too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, from an artist standpoint and then from a writer standpoint, how much relationship between those two are there? And I say that because as you're reading a comic, right, obviously you're reading the words, but the pictures really tell sometimes I think more of the story than the actual writing, right? And that kind of dance that you have between the writer and the artist is extremely important for that story to come across. And now I know Inkblot and then obviously Stoneheart, you did both sides, right? So
Uh,
what are the major differences and what are the major similarities between the two?
so I'm actually talking about this in one of my classes right
Oh,
now. So
cool.
for I
We don't
teach
want your students to cheat by listening to this though, right?
no,
Okay.
they know this because I already told them.
Okay.
But the whole thing, so I teach at the Kubert School, and I also teach the online courses for narrative art. And so we were literally just talking about this, that I always talk about what it is to be the role of the sequential artist in a comic book, because you have, the writer, the artist, and along with the artist, you'll have the inker, colorist, letterer, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And each part of the process is all about the story. Like you are making every single decision about the story. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, comic books are a visual medium.
Yeah.
Like the end product isn't a prose novel that you're reading, and the end
Yeah.
product isn't like a television show that you're watching.
Right,
It's
right.
legitimate artwork that the artist does.
Yeah.
So for me, I always thought it was like one of the most important parts of creating a comic book, to, if you know you have separate roles as artist and writer, to be
Mhm.
as close to the writer as you possibly can. And
Yeah.
those are the projects that I found are, I guess, just the most successful in general, is
Yeah.
having a writer and an artist work very well, or basically very in sync with each other, like very side by side, or have them be the same.
Yeah, yeah. That helps, right?
A little bit, but it's mostly because the storytelling that you see, a lot of it comes from the visual. So the
Mhm.
artist 100% needs to know
Yeah.
every little aspect about the story before
Right.
they even start drawing it. And that's why I think it's just so important for them to be intertwined and like work together really well, or as I said before, be the same person.
Exactly.
Even though sometimes that can get a little tricky too, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I can imagine. Right? I can imagine. I mean, that's a
um,
lot to take on, right?
it is. It's a lot to organize, I would say.
Yeah.
But good thing I like organization. I wouldn't say I'm the most organized person ever. I'm pretty messy physically. But organization in general, I really like,
Yeah.
and I like time management. I like kind of scheduling myself. So having that all set
Yeah.
out helps me do all the things that I do.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think when it comes to comics in general, the writer and the artist really need to have that kind of, I don't want to say codependent relationship, but
Yeah.
codependent relationship,
Yeah.
because that's really what it is. Like the
Right.
writer starts it and the artist finishes it,
Yeah.
but it kind of also just goes back and forth with each other too. Like the
Yeah.
artist will draw something and the writer will write dialogue for that,
Yeah.
etc. So
Hmm.
it can easily go back and forth. And I just always thought it needed to be a very, tight relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Do you have a preference? I mean, I think I know the answer just because of your history and your family history, but I could be wrong. Do you have a preference between the art side of it and then the writer side of it? Is there one that you enjoy more than the other?
I like both.
Yep.
Um, I mean, it's really hard to choose one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's mostly like, as I said before, like working
Hmm.
on Radiant Pink versus like working on Pandora and Inkblot. It's
Yeah.
nice to be a part of a project that I don't have to create so much for. I
Mhm.
just have to do the drawing or the
Yeah.
storytelling in the drawing. And that's really exciting to be able to explore a character
Hmm.
that is already established.
Yeah.
Um, but I would say on the other ladder, I really do love creating and I
Yeah,
really
yeah.
do love writing. I really love creating story any way that I can.
Yeah.
So it's not really like I can choose one or the other. It's more like they both kind of make up what I love to do the most,
Yeah.
Because like I don't just like straight up writing. I mean, I've
Yeah.
tried writing like other things like
Uh,
prose novels and like
yeah, yeah.
stuff like that. And I gotta tell you, I am really bad at writing description. And it's mostly because every time I write description, like
Yeah.
any type of description, anything that I'm describing, I'm just kind of like, I'm like, why can't I just draw this?
Yeah.
On the latter side, if I'm writing something and I'm writing like, let's say a comic book script and I write a page where it's like giant fight scene between giant octopus and, our main protagonist, and the giant army is going to invade, then I look at it and I'm just like, okay, now I have to draw this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it all depends on the instance and the project that I'm working on. But
Yeah.
I think all in all, just a combination of the two is really my favorite thing, my absolute favorite thing to do. Just
Yeah.
creating stories is my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it definitely comes across. I think the next question, the next question I would have is how far in advance are you working? So we know issue 2 of Stoneheart came out, I think it was last week actually. How many like issues forward are you writing and drawing? Because this is a monthly, and
Yes.
that would stress me out knowing that I haven't. And then I start to see your name on several different things, and like you said, it's probably just timing. But still, I mean, you have to be pretty far out, don't you?
I am far out with
Okay.
Stoneheart.
Yeah.
So even before I pitched the idea, I
Hmm.
had the entire story, like start to finish,
Okay.
not just the first arc, but the entire story
Oh
all
wow.
complete.
Yeah.
And it's mostly just because with Stoneheart, I kind of didn't foresee making it into a comic book. It just sort of happened that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Um, or at least like I got so far with the idea that I started to look at it and be like, oh, this could be a comic book,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? But I I mean, I would say that can you repeat the question again?
Yeah,
Just
no,
like
it's okay. Yeah, like how many issues ahead are you
oh, okay,
as far as
okay.
like we two just hit comic book stores? Are you like
Yeah.
already done with like issue 5 and 6, or like how
Oh,
far out
yeah.
are you as far as the comic book?
Yeah, sorry. I like completely forgot as I was
No,
like
it's
talking.
okay. Yeah,
You know
no, you're
what?
good, Emma. You're
You
good.
know how that happens?
Oh, it happens to me all the time, trust me.
Like if I'm answering a question, it's just like okay. No, I'm totally finished with the first arc right
Oh,
now.
okay.
I'm just kind of
Awesome.
putting finishing touches on the issue 6.
Oh, okay.
And I have all of the next arc all planned out. So that
Nice.
is really just me, rolling into that next one. And what I'm really hoping for, I know that, ongoing series, it all depends on the audience.
Yeah,
So as
exactly. Yeah.
long as there's an audience reading it, I
Mm-hmm.
can keep creating it.
Yeah.
And I foresaw this entire series, however long it takes me to create it, I want to create it.
Yeah.
So I kind of foresaw it being, if it's a very, very long series, at least 30 issues. If
Uh-huh.
I could get to that 30 issue mark, then it's over. It's
It's
done.
over.
That's
That's
my
the
whole
goal. That's the goal. Yeah.
story. Yeah. And
Very
so like
cool.
I've been doing like these interviews too and like really relaying that so
Yeah.
that people keep reading. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just because this is one of those stories that I really want to get to the end.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
want you guys to read the ending because I know a lot, like, I know how the comic book industry works. It
Yeah,
all
yeah.
depends. The number one always gets the most views,
For
and then
sure.
it kind of dissipates from there. And I
Yeah.
really hope that changes.
Yeah.
I bet we all do.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think with this particular story, it's just it's a more personal kind of story that I'm telling here.
Yeah.
So I'm literally just looking to finish it. I just want it to be finished because
Yeah.
it's just one of those, I don't care how many people are reading it. If it's one
Mm-hmm.
person going to a comic book shop and buying it, I'm writing that story for that one person,
There you go. Yeah, yeah. I think that's a good attitude to have for sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's really what Stoneheart is. It's kind of, and I mean it's in the themes of it too, the
Yeah,
tenacity and the determination.
for
That
sure.
is me, and that is also me creating the story.
Yeah, yeah. So that brings me to another question, right? How much of Emma is in Shade?
So much.
So much.
I mean, like Shade is, a very rambunctious, bubbly, excitable
Uh-huh.
20 something year old.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Lots of
that is
energy. Lots of
lots of
energy, right?
energy. She's kind of weird, but like in like a fun way, but you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
There's she's just
Well,
she's
there are instances where it goes really different.
exactly. And
Yeah.
that's the whole thing is that she has this kind of energy
Yeah.
that she puts out into the world, whether it can be good or bad or anything in
Yeah.
between. And I think when I was at that particular age, or even like, teenage age to like mid 20s age, right
Mhm.
now, I'm around, how old am I? I'm almost 29.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, at that age, it was really a point when I was trying to figure things out,
Hmm.
but I was also finding that um a lot of great things were happening to me uh while my mental health was kind of declining.
Okay.
And it
Yeah.
was one of those moments where like, you really couldn't figure out what was
Hmm.
going on. Like
Yeah.
you're just kind of like, everything is going really well for me, so why do I feel like absolute crap?
Yeah. Hmm.
But then on the latter side of that, you don't want to act that way out outwardly.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that really is what the kind of attitude Shade has, is that she is confronting this world, this new
yeah.
world that she's going into.
Right.
So she's trying her best to be as happy and positive as she can, but
Yeah.
she's an emotional wreck. So,
Yeah. And there's
so
certain instances that
yeah,
take place that trigger that. I don't know if rage is the wrong word, but you're holding all that in, right? And then it has to come out. And there's certain triggers that it does come out. I don't know if that's what you were portraying in that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that's awesome.
exactly. And I think that I mean, as I was writing her, it really was just me writing about the problems that I was having and putting
Hmm.
it into like a character. But
Yeah,
when I was reading her, I was just kind of like, I think she's pretty relatable. You know,
for sure.
most people who are starting out into the world, they don't
Yeah,
want to reveal too much about themselves because they
yeah,
don't know much about the world.
yeah,
And so there is that kind of give and take of like, you need to figure out where you are and what you're doing and how to handle what's going on up here
sure.
before
Yeah,
you can really handle a lot that's going on out there. But she's kind of just thrown into it. So
yeah.
she has to figure things out
Hmm.
and herself out all at the same time
Yeah,
while
yeah,
she's getting, entangled into this new predicament. And
yeah.
it's a wild ride for her.
It is. It's a fun ride and it is wild. And there's obviously after reading issue 2, there's still a lot of questions, which is good. You want questions at the end of each book, right? So I
Oh,
can't
definitely.
wait for 3, but it's been really good so far.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's also the main thing that I wanted to present with the this story was that you want to constantly keep reading it
Hmm.
for the characters.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not like the plot is, simple. It's the physical plot of it all, it just has to do with, the characters that are getting involved and the
yeah.
predicaments that she's involved in. But her character herself, that's why you want to keep
Hmm.
reading. And
Yeah,
that's really what I'm hoping for, because she is a ball of questions and craziness. And she's super happy and it feels genuine, but there's
yeah.
also something else going on.
Like you
And
said,
I
I think
think,
it's very relatable. I think we all
yeah,
like outwardly want to portray ourselves in a certain way, but inwardly, like we're hiding a lot of things that we don't think might be received. And so, yeah, I think to certain extents, right? Everybody's at different levels, but I think everyone can relate to that.
I think so too. And I try to bring that into like the other characters as well. Like in
Hmm.
the second issue, you meet Eldon Redwood,
Yeah,
who's
Belden.
the another side character and
Yeah,
to be her buddy and everything. And you'll find out more about his character and just going, continuing on her journey. There'll be other characters around that you figure things out too. And
yeah,
that's another thing that I really want you to like, or the audience in general, to just really engage with all of these really well-rounded characters
yeah,
and see themselves in them too.
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I can't wait. It's been very enjoyable so far.
Yay.
Um, Emma, I wanted to ask you, you obviously come from a family of comic book artists,
Yes,
quite
I
a
do.
family,
Yes, I
but
do.
yes, you do. A pretty impressive family when it
I
comes to
think so
comic, and
too.
an important one within the comic industry as well. But you're still Emma, and I
I
assume
am.
you're very different from the rest of your family. So what at what point in your age did you realize I really want to go into this field? Because obviously you were kind of born into it
Mm.
from your grandfather,
Yeah,
your father, your uncle. I mean, I think you have an aunt that does. I mean, there it just goes
yeah,
on and on.
yeah.
There's
I mean,
Coopers everywhere, right? So I was like, but for Emma specifically, like when did you realize like I really want to go into this industry because I enjoy it for myself, not just because of the family that I was raised in?
yeah. Well, I can just tell you, basically that goes hand in hand with my personal background.
Uh-huh.
So, yes, I was raised basically near everything.
Hmm.
So, my parents raised me and my brother basically the town over from the Kubert school from
Okay.
my grandpa.
Hmm.
and from everything there. So
Yeah.
not only did my dad teach at the school, my mom also helped create the Joe Kubert art store. So
Oh,
she
wow.
ran the art store there as
That's
my dad
awesome.
was teaching. My grandpa was teaching, uncle as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've had a cousin who's gone through the school too. My other cousin is an editor at DC. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can go on, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
For me,
Mm-hmm.
growing up, I absolutely loved art and I loved drawing, but I didn't necessarily love comics.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
I was, I was drawing ever since I could hold a pencil. Like that was something that I absolutely loved.
Yeah.
And even as, a young girl, I was very, I was and am very proud of my family and being a part of a
Yeah.
family
Mm-hmm.
that is what you described, but I also just felt really special. I mean, I
Yeah.
grew up in a world where, like you're looking at the neighborhood and everyone's dad is a doctor or a lawyer or accountant or something like that. And then I could say my dad's a comic book artist and draws
Yeah.
Batman.
Yeah,
That's a
exactly.
cool flex. I
That's pretty
mean,
cool. That's pretty cool, I have to admit.
really cool. Like I
Yeah.
felt very special to have like this
Yeah.
kind of background for my family. So taking to drawing was very natural for me. It was something
Yeah.
that I automatically loved to do. And I had the family around as well, but comic books weren't totally for me. And
Yeah.
it was mostly just because at the pivotal age where you're thinking about what you want, like I would say honestly preteens is probably the time where you're
Mhm.
finding a direction in your life,
Yeah.
like you're
Yeah.
realizing what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are.
Mm-hmm.
Mine, I always knew I was a bit more creative than the average.
Mm-hmm.
um and so like my dad would get boxes of comic books from DC too, and a lot of the comic books that were given, I just did not relate to
Yeah.
them. There
Yeah.
was
Mm-hmm.
the ones that were like Cartoon Network or cartoons like Scooby-Doo and Powerpuff Girls, which I love to read, but
Yeah.
that was when I was like, 5 or 6, not
Yeah.
like 13.
Right.
And then there was Batman and Superman, and even looking at Wonder Woman, there wasn't really a totally relatable character that I found as a preteen
Yeah.
gal
Yeah.
that I really liked
Yeah.
at that time. And so when I realized, I don't think comics are for me, I kind of turned to something else and I turned to animation.
Oh,
And the
yep.
reason why I turned to animated films and television and wanting to learn animation was because I would watch all of these animated movies and television shows that felt like they were made for everyone. Like it
Mm.
wasn't just like they were made for one particular audience.
Yeah.
Mostly, yes, they were made for kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But like watching, like let's say Pixar movies,
Mm-hmm.
you would see a 6-year-old and a 60-year-old in the
Yeah.
movie theater watching a Pixar film, and both are sobbing their eyes out.
Exactly. Yeah. For
And
sure.
those were the kind of stories that I really wanted to tell, was
Yeah.
something that everyone could enjoy. And so comics just didn't feel like especially in the way that I was exposed to them, and it was only mostly through Western comics that I
Mm-hmm.
felt like, there wasn't really a place for everyone. There was a very kind of divided audience in
Mm-hmm.
our industry at that time.
Yeah.
So I went to school. I went to Savannah College of Art and Design for animation first, right
Mm-hmm.
after high school.
Yeah.
Um, 2 years in, I dropped out of college for animation.
Yeah.
And it was mostly because one, I didn't want to animate. I didn't like the animation, like
Yeah.
animated physically, because that really bored me. Um, and then, and then I realized that I wanted to do more of the pre-production stuff. I wanted to do more storyboarding, more
Yeah.
concept art, character design, whatever pre-production really implies. Um, and that was really also more of the spot that like creates the story.
Yeah.
So from there, I was kind of looking at my college career. I was looking at what I was doing, and I'm like, I don't think I'm going to get good enough here. So I left college and I went back home. I went to the Kubert school
Mm-hmm.
at that time because I was just like, I called my dad up. I was just like, Dad, I think I have to go home. I think I
Yeah.
have to go to the Kubert school. And he was just like, this is deja vu because he did the same thing around my age. That he went to college and then he called up his dad and was like, I don't think I like it here. So it was very much deja vu for him, but
Yeah.
went home. I went to the Kubert school, and even when I was going through the Kubert, when I was going to the Kubert school the year prior, I actually did an internship at DC Comics.
Mm.
It was in their manufacturing department. So I wasn't doing art, like I
Yeah.
wasn't even editing or anything. It was more just like I was doing corrections before the stories went to print.
Okay.
And my boss gave me an omnibus of Amanda Connors and Jimmy Palmiotti's Harley Quinn. And that's
Um,
also around the time when she was starting to get really popular.
yeah, yeah.
So as I was going over this omnibus, he was like, you probably want to read that too. And I'm like, probably. So I started to read it as well as I was like correcting it. And it was one of the first times that I started to read a character, like a superhero character in
Yeah.
mainstream superhero comic medium that wasn't, I can't say that she's totally relatable. I
Yeah,
mean, at
yeah.
least at this point.
Right.
But back then, when there weren't a lot of characters like her,
Mm-hmm.
she was someone that I thought I could take to. Like,
Yeah.
she had a crazy personality.
Yeah.
She wasn't so much of a hero, of course, but she
Right.
also wasn't totally a villain.
Yeah. She
Like, she
could
was
be,
just
right? She could
she's
be
like,
almost, right?
yeah, like she's kind of like she has her own agenda,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
she's mostly a villain, but like not the
Yeah.
baddest of villains,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And like then she started to become friends with Poison Ivy, and I was
Yeah.
just like, oh my God, this is what I want. This is
Yeah.
what these are the kind of stories I wanted to tell, was of a kooky character
Yeah.
just living their life and just
Yeah.
doing all this stuff. And I was just like, okay, like, so she's becoming a lot more popular. So that
Yeah.
probably means that, you know, other things like this are going to come up too.
For sure.
And,
Yeah.
lo and behold, they did,
They
and
did.
we're in it. We're in the time right now
Yeah,
where
yeah.
diversity is key.
Yeah.
And that was really something that sparked my interest. So when I was going to the Kubert school, the first year, it's a 3-year program. The first year, I was like, okay, I'm still going to do storyboards. I'm still going to do concept art. Second year, I was like, okay, I'll go into this comics thing, but I'll work with a writer. I'll try
Yeah.
to do, like I'll try for DC and Marvel and anything else, like any other company that I could get. And then third year, our teachers forced us to create our own story ideas. And I've always wanted to create my own stories, but I've
Yeah.
always been very fearful, very scared, very vulnerable about
Yeah.
it. So being forced to in an assignment,
Yeah.
that was really annoying, but it worked out very well. And
Yeah.
it was because my third year at the Cure School, that is when I created the beginnings of Inkblot. And
Mm.
so that was kind of like, like as the times were changing while I was going through school and I was figuring out what direction I wanted to go in,
Mm-hmm.
things were kind of shifting in that direction. So
Yeah.
I was happy to see that, things that I liked in the comic industry started to get more prevalent,
Yeah.
and more creators were starting to become a little bit more diverse. And so
Yeah.
that meant the audience became a little bit more diverse.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
it finally felt like there was somewhat of a place for the kind of
Yeah.
stories and the kind of things I wanted to draw to
Yeah.
be in the comics industry.
Yep.
Um, so then that was when I was just like, okay, I think I can do this. And so I tried it, and I tried to go for it because
Yeah.
again, drawing stories has always been something that was with me, but drawing comic books, I just felt like there wasn't totally a place for my own art and my own work within that industry.
Yeah.
In the industry that I grew up with. And so I'm really happy that nowadays we have the industry breaking a bit more open. They have talent searches for
Yeah.
other kind of creative people, and it's just, you know, it really works out and it helps me grow as an artist too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the ease, not that it's cheap, but the ease of creating your own comic book has really opened up doors to a lot of people that are
100%.
creative, but maybe didn't have the way. I mean, now, you have Comic Wellspring and Kablam.
Yeah,
And so, you could put something together and you could print it yourself and you could do a Kickstarter and
exactly.
Indiegogo. And all of a sudden, we're getting all these amazing stories that I just don't think we would receive unless the industry made it that easy to bring some of these stories forth. So some of the funnest, most unique things that I've read, I just go on Kickstarter. I'm like, oh, that looks interesting. And then I get it. I'm like, wow, that's really good.
No,
Right.
I totally agree. I think that's one of the reasons why I took to like Image and
Yeah,
indie comics a little
absolutely.
bit more. I mean, honestly, starting out, you know, as a freelancer,
Uh-huh.
you just want to get your hands on anything.
For
Like
sure.
you're just
Yeah.
grasping straws on anything, and it's not
Yeah.
just because, you know, like you want to draw something, but it's because you want to make money. Like you want to have
Yeah.
a living.
What's funny is we have bills, right? And those still have to get paid.
Exactly.
They get in the
And
way, but they're
and
there.
so like in the beginning when I first graduated, I was really just grasping at any straws that I
Sure.
could get a hold of. Like I wanted to really get myself in there and find a place for me. And so as I was grasping at those straws, that's how a lot of things came to be. Like with Inkblot, I basically sent my portfolio around to a list of like 20 plus emails, just
Hmm.
being like, look at it, please. See
Yeah.
if anything, a 5 page, a 10-page story,
Yeah.
anything. And
Yeah.
this was kind of like the like a final feel for me.
Yeah.
It was like I was really putting it into the atmosphere. And I got one email back, and that was from Eric Stevenson, who
Oh,
was,
wow.
and he was just like, "This is great. Do you want to work with the writer or do you want to create your own thing?" And I'm like, "Both. Yes,
Yeah.
anything. Like, I'll do anything, please."
Yeah.
And so he's like, "All right, we'll talk in a week." And that was when I turned to my partner, Rusty.
Uh-huh.
And I was just like, okay, we have a week to come up with something. So I like turned to like the old projects that I had, and he was looking at his old projects, and
Yeah.
we took the old project that I had that was the start of Inkblot. He was reading some really high fantasy stuff at that time, so
Hmm.
that's how we kind of combined the two and
Oh, that's
created
cool. That's
Inkblot.
awesome. That's so cool. Image Comics they're kind of the foundation for indie comics, right?
Agree.
Not to take away from IDW and some of the other ones that have been around a long time, but Image brought that whole side of the industry to the forefront and
Yeah.
kind of made it possible for a lot of people to become a creator without having to go through the big two, which is very difficult to do, right? And then you're taking
Yeah.
on characters that have years and years of canon, so you're kind of limited. And again, I love that. I love keeping the canon. I don't want to see Batman get powers or anything like that, right? But it limits it, right, as a creator,
It
and
does.
that makes it a little bit difficult. And I get that side too. So yeah, I'm super happy for you, and I'm glad that the Image was there to take you on. And I think that's amazing. And it sounds like you'll be doing this for a long time.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope I am because I really love creating stories a whole
yeah,
lot.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I hope that I can continue to keep doing it, which I am right now. So
yeah. You're
fingers
doing it.
crossed.
You're doing it now.
I'm
You're doing
doing it. So it's
amazing. You
happening.
have a very unique artistic style that if I see like when I saw Stoneheart and I saw your name on it, I knew right away this was your art, only because of what you've done with Pandora. And it reminds me of what's his name that did Invincible, Ryan Otley. I don't know if you're familiar with Ryan Otley, but anything
That's a
that he does, you know it's
huge
Ryan Otley.
compliment.
Oh yeah, because you have a very unique style. So, and so does he. So when I see a Hulk issue, and I know it's his artwork, I could see it right away, right? And I think that's pretty awesome too, that you
I
have
think
such a great style.
I was I'm very specific about how I draw, and it's
Mm-hmm.
because like since I'm a teacher, I can honestly see how people develop themselves as artists. And
Yeah.
I've thought about it this way myself, and I've seen people like especially comic book artists and commercial artists, there's two ways that I've seen people really grow very quickly as artists.
Mm-hmm.
One way was is that they usually take one or two artists that they like and that they're inspired by,
Yeah.
and they really just study from those specific artists. Like they
Mm-hmm.
want to draw exactly like them or very similar to them. So they learn through that artist. The other way that I found is that um this way honestly I think takes longer, but it
Mm-hmm.
has more longevity to it,
Mm.
is that if you're learning all of the foundations of drawing, like all of the basic foundations, perspective, lighting, form, shape, all that kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
um and you're combining that with your inspirations, with what you like, and you're combining it with drawing from life, that's how you're really able to start creating your own
Mm.
way of doing things.
Yeah.
And it definitely takes a lot longer.
Yeah.
But for me, I think when I was going through school, I knew that I my strengths didn't lie in drawing traditional like comic book
Mm-hmm.
superhero looking stuff.
Yeah.
That's what my dad did.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I do not draw like him.
Yeah. Yeah.
He
Yeah.
is
Very
up
different.
here and I am just here. So it was just kind of like I had to kind of pivot and
Mm-hmm.
find my own way of how to implement all of the things that I like and all the things that I'm inspired by
Yeah.
to create how I draw. And so I thought one of I guess the unique things about me is that I came from learning about animation and being inspired by a lot of animators and a lot of artists that are in the animation industry.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also inspired by comic book artists that are on like the absolute opposite side of the spectrum of animation,
Mm-hmm.
or like drawing style wise animation.
Mm-hmm.
Like I 100% took to Frank Miller stuff
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
was in high school.
Sure. Yeah.
Mike Mignola is another one that I
Yeah.
really absolutely love.
Yeah.
I referenced Alex Toth and Alex Raymond a whole lot in when I'm drawing. And
Mm-hmm.
so those artists look nothing like, Pixar artists or
Right.
Glenn
Right.
Keane, who is animating, the Beast from Beauty and the Beast over here. Like
Yeah.
they do
Yeah.
not look alike at all.
At all. Right.
And
Yeah.
my kind of goal was to just find a way to combine those two
Mm-hmm.
things because I love both.
Yeah.
I love how they both have things to offer in
Mm-hmm.
that. So I wanted to take more of the movement and the expressions and I guess the form of everything from animation while taking the storytelling and the contrast and the lighting and the rendering from, the comic book
Yeah. Yeah.
artists that I love and just combining those two and finding a specific way to do things. Now, that being said, I do kind of go to each project and each story and I do, I'm just kind of like, okay, how am I going to approach this particular
Right.
project? How am I going to do it this way? But
Yeah.
as a whole, for my particular style, I really wanted to have a very distinct way of people recognizing me. And I think having things that are so opposite
Yeah.
put together really helps that out. I'm still figuring it out though, so
Yeah. Well, for sure, right? And I think over
still
time,
figuring it
right, there
out.
might be
Trying
small
my best.
change. Yeah. But it
Yeah.
definitely comes across. I mean, you
Okay,
definitely have
good.
a really amazing style, and I really enjoy your artwork for sure.
Ah, thank you
Yeah.
so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
So we talked about Stoneheart. We know that you're working on I think you just mentioned that you were on issue 6 and you're tightening that one up. What other things that you can share that you're also working on that maybe people aren't too aware of?
Um,
Or are you kind
well,
of engrossed right now with teaching and everything else?
I would say that right this second, I'm a little bit more engrossed with the projects that I'm on right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Pandora, we're finishing up the first arc, so
Yep.
issues 1 through 6 will be out.
Yeah.
And I think the trade is coming in July. So the
Nice.
trade for Pandora arc 1 will be coming out, and then arc 2 is going to follow shortly after.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and same with for Stoneheart. I'm just, as I said, I'm doing Stoneheart for as long as I possibly can.
Issue
Um,
30, issue 30.
but we'll see, we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but my other stuff, I mean, there's not really so much I can talk about. I have
Yep, okay.
Inkbot that has issues 1 through 15 out.
Yep.
That's currently on a hiatus. But I know that me and Rusty definitely want to go back to it. And
Yeah.
I have some just other things that are out too. Like I
Hmm.
have my web comic that's on Topis
Yep.
called Brushstroke.
Brushstroke,
Um
I saw that.
and
Yeah.
then I can't list all the stuff that I've done so far. There's other stuff out
There's other
there.
stuff too.
But
Where
I'm
can people
excited to go.
find most of your stuff, Emma? Like you have your own website, right?
I have my own website, emmacubert.com, but
Yep.
I also post a lot about my stuff on social media.
Yeah.
So mostly Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And sometimes I post on TikTok. I'm trying to be, more active on there.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, honestly, you can just follow me on social media at Emma Kubert and you can find out all this stuff
Yeah.
um, if you follow me.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Well, Emma, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time for me today to go over this. I'm super excited to have met you. Big fan of your artwork and now your writing too, because Stoneheart is really my first entrance into the Emma world that you've created, and it's a
Thanks.
really fun read. If you haven't read Stoneheart, you're really missing out. I think it's extremely relatable, and it's really fun. It's a really fun book to read.
I like to, present fun stories that get
Yes.
really intense at some points.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. Well, Emma, thank you so much for joining us, and I wish you the very best.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, yeah. Have a good one.